What do you do when your town is filled with evil? You go out and you kill a cop. Welcome to Nerdy for 30. Welcome to Nerdy for 30, the show where comedian Tim Keck and I talk and nerd out about things that we have seen lately. We're going to be talking about Fear Street, the entire trilogy today, parts 1 through 3. And because we are talking about a horror movie, we had to get the authority, the Scream Queen herself, our pal Ingrid Ostby, back on the pod. Ingrid, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing so well today. It's a great day to talk about 3 different movies.
3 movies in 30 minutes. I think we can do it.
I know. I think we can do it. We can break it down. 10 minutes to a movie, maybe, or not.
I think we can definitely say everything we need to say about these movies in 30 minutes. I think that's being generous.
I feel like I already know where Tim lies with his opinion about these films.
I liked exactly 50% of these movies.
Interesting. What 50%?
Part 1, I liked, and the last hour of the third one, I liked. I just like the stuff in the present day, the 90s. When was it? 94? Mm-hmm. The 94 stuff was great. It's like a traditional slasher. They're cutting people up. It's like exactly what I expected from this. And then the camp stuff, I just feel like they blew the camp stuff, the old timey stuff. Like, who cares? I was just so turned off by this. What'd you think, Ingrid? What was your take on this?
Okay, I love the first one. I feel like the opening credit sequence was like one of my favorite parts of the movie, which is not saying the rest of the movie was bad, but it was just like so well done. And I feel like they all their steam was on that first one. I really liked the camp one, but the end of the camp one was sort of like, this whole movie was pointless. And then the witch stuff, the parallel character stuff was so confusing. But yes, I love the end of that. So I really like 2 too, because I like when they're crawling around the cave for the whole time. That's great to me.
Interesting. So you liked 2, like overall as a movie, with the exception of the ending. You did definitely like 2.
I think I did really like it. I think I didn't like it as much as 1. I just had a riotous time for most of these movies.
Right on.
Just like, especially as like, I don't know, they're very like Scream-esque. And I feel like that we've been missing that kind of fun when people are getting murdered. And I felt like this kind of captured some of that.
I dig it. I'm definitely more on your side than Tim's.
What are your thoughts?
Really fun. I mean, I've seen so many horror movies. The bar is so low for horror movies. I've seen so many bad horror movies. So to see anything that's even like mildly entertaining, it's great. I thought these cleared the bar easy. If these had come out when I was in high school, this would have been, my friends and I would have had a blast watching these like 3 consecutive Fridays. Would have loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way. It's a bummer that like we're in weird COVID times, because it would have been a fun like throwback visit to the theater for all 3 of these.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, granted, it was much cheaper this way, but for us to watch them on Netflix.
I mean, I just thought this was a great time. So obviously, you know, I'm assuming that anybody listening to this podcast has seen all 3 movies. Just in case you haven't, first movie starts off in 1994. We get the story that will serve as the framing device for the rest of the narrative. We do a flashback to see Gillian Jacobs' character when she's younger, and almost gets murdered at a camp. And then we go even further back to the year 1666 to see the origin of the curse that's haunting this town. And then I thought, kind of strangely, the back half of the part 3 movie took place in 1994 again. So 1978 got effectively an entire movie. And then 1666 got like an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes. Go with me on this one. What do you think about, I don't know that 1978 part 2 needed to be an entire movie. I would have liked a little bit more 1994 in there.
I think I agree with you.
100%. I think the format for the third one, I was watching the camp thing. Like, I mean, this is a recurring beef with me, is just, I don't like going back in time. I hate it. We're here. Like, why are we going back to see something that you already told us about. You told us there's a murder at this camp. You told us who does it. Like, what do we get out of going back to the camp other than like seeing the thing that you already told us about, you know? Like, it just took the fun out of me. I think they did it cool. I think it's like, I like what it could have been. I mean, I feel like they did all these movies out of order. That's my take about this. How much are these movies better if they go in chronological order? Okay, I don't know if I was supposed to save this for a category, but like, why didn't they just make these like a series of slasher movies and then like go through time with like all these different slashers and then tie them together like at the end with a pretty bow? Like, why didn't it all just like work and like build towards something as opposed to like...
'Cause that's life, man. That's my answer for everything today. That's life, man. I will say, I kind of agree with you. I think if they had started with 1666, I would have been like, this is insane. I don't understand. Like, because would they have kept the same like actors as the different characters? Like, I don't know. I feel bad for the actress who played Sarah Fear because she just got like basically a reflection as her role, and that was it. Like, yeah, you know, if they would have maybe started 1666 with other characters, that would have been cool. And to your point, there were so many different slasher, like so many different murderers that were from this witch that like the little doll face with the bat. I was like, who are you? Who are all these people coming out of the woodwork that we won't get to know? But I guess I kind of like that it was just throwing all the like tropes and character types in there.
I think there might have been. Do you think there were too many killers? Do you think this movie is just as effective with like 3?
There should have been more.
Jesus Christ!
It starts in the 1600s.
I would have liked. I want to know when they're all from. When is Dollface from? Yeah, you're right, Tim. There should have been every. There should have been 100 of them. Yeah.
There should have been what they said every couple of years we need a new killer. So what? That's 100. It was in 16. So then what's the math? That was 400 something years ago.
Was it 2? I thought it was like 7 years or something.
It was every 7 years. They said every like few years. So at least it's 50, right? It should at least be 50 different killers. Did we see at least 50 different killers? I mean, they took us back in time for no reason. It was kind of fun, but like, I don't know. It just plot wise, I'm like, this is crazy. Why are you doing this to us? Why are you showing us the thing? We know everything. Did you get were there any surprises in these like earlier time periods for you? Did you like learn anything from any of these?
I think so. Yeah. The reveal that Good's family is behind it. I was all the way there for that. I want to defend going back to 1666 for that, because finding out Sarah Fear was innocent was great after she's been villainized for 2 movies.
I did like that. It is interesting to build to the book thing with this random lady in the woods who loves to do like, I don't know, astrology and psychic readings and like witch time. Like, who was that person? Who was that? Like, I loved hearing that Sarah Fear is innocent, but who was this lady?
Yeah.
It's the camp counselor again. It's like the nurse. Like, who is this person?
That woman would have been burned at the stake way before Sarah Fear or the other woman. What is she doing?
The town loves having a witch that lives in the woods, but if one lives in the town, they're like, oh my God.
If you live a few feet away from the town, you're safe. If you live in the town, you cannot be a witch.
It is crazy that they do a literal witch hunt and they're like, it's somebody in the town. The lady 20 feet away, she's safe. You know, she's
cool. But those 2 girls who fingered each other, it's their witches.
Yeah. The scariest thing about these movies was how women and, gay people have been treated in society throughout our history. It's like I think there's like I don't know if I've seen this, but there's like a really disturbing movie about like just women being accused of witchcraft in this. That is like, I guess that wasn't really the vibe. They like kind of, I feel like they touch on it, but there's like something really, truly fucked up about somebody just accusing you of this. And all of a sudden you're just like burned a lot. You're just like hung, and everyone in the town like just turns on you instantly. Like the idea that everyone can get up and just lie and say that you like fucked a devil. And that's like something that's like normal. And like, you know, that's crazy. They're just making up an insane story. And everyone's like, yeah, I saw this. Like, I don't know. It didn't.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. It's so disturbing and crazy.
Well, I think that is part of what I liked, and part of what felt so familiar about this is that, like, this movie had a bazillion different references. I wasn't expecting like a Crucible the witch reference, but that was clearly such a, I don't know, either an homage or like, it just was like, its whole format was to like copy other formats in like an artful way. I feel like was like the camp thing. Of course, we wanted to have that slasher film. The 90s one, I guess, yeah, again, was kind of like Scream-ish. The 1600s one, there was a lot of like the witch vibes in there. So I think like it could have been a different movie, but I feel like part of the point was to make these all kind of like other things. Because did you catch all the like references to other horror movies throughout the movie? There were like at least 5 in every single, maybe not the witch one, but there were so many in each one. So I feel like that was part of the whole ride.
It felt like a lot. The beginning of the movie, I was like, oh, this is Scream 100%. They're doing this like tight mall. They're doing this like proof of concept scene up top. It starts with a phone call. It starts with this meta commentary on like what a slasher is, which immediately I was like, okay, this has to be good now. There's no way they make a joke about like how like generic and useless slasher movies are if they just make a generic and, you know, slasher movie. I don't know if they reached the pinnacle that they were aspiring to, in my opinion, but they were definitely taking shots at other horror movies, which is kind of cool. Sure.
They even had the doors on the stores go down like in Scream, where what's her face gets trapped in the garage door. I was like, that has to be a clear reference to like visual reference to Scream.
Yeah.
Getting stuck underneath the door.
There were a couple of things they did that they mirrored throughout every time period. I wanted to go back to the first one and see if I could find this again, but 2 and 3 definitely had scenes where one of the characters was on their back, kicking upward at like a grate, trying to get out of it. And I'm not sure I understand why they repeated that, but I like that they did it because they probably have a reason.
Right. Yeah, it was a nice little, you know, callback, I guess. Yeah, I like seeing the visual similarities between them.
Yeah,
that is a good point. I feel like it's a good rewatch for that reason, if I were to take the time to do that, because there were a lot of those types of moments.
The last hour of the movie made everything make sense to me. And I was like, you know, kind of, why did we spend 2 hours at this camp? Why did we spend an hour in those old times? And the final hour of like the third movie, it's like, oh, I felt good about that, at least, where it's like, oh, so there was a plan with this. You wanted everybody to come together. We've got Gillian Jacobs, who so far has worked one day on this entire trilogy, showing up for this fight scene at the end. We've enlisted this guy who I guess for some reason needs to be involved in the final. There's like a guy at the police station. Like, you go through the point of like traveling through time to find different people who've been affected by this, and then you just pull in like a rando for like the final fight scene because I don't remember this guy. The rando. He was in the police station, and the kid slid him a paperclip so he could, you know, in theory escape, and then he gave him his card. And then he worked security at the mall, so they went to the mall to get him. But why can't you include that guy in one of the earlier movies? Why can't he be someone who was affected by the camp? Why can't he be somebody who was whatever, you know?
I know. I mean, I actually I kind of found that a little like offensive. I was just like, this guy's awesome. You know, and also has been in like huge things before this. I think he was in like 3 Billboards and some other movie recently.
He's great.
Oh, damn.
He's great. And I was like, why wouldn't, I don't know. There was like a part where he was like, there was some weird like reference to like murder and like maybe drug dealing. He was like, of course I know about those things, and then like joined them for that. And I was just like, I don't know, man. Maybe we don't. Maybe we just don't. It was like some very like, yeah, it wasn't great. And he was awesome. There was also like the other officer and the other good brother that was like really confusing to know who was like the older and younger versions. Like there was this kid at camp. He was like a more like stocky kid, and they showed him interacting with like Officer Good as a kid. And I was like, is that the like schlubby guy in the police office? I had no idea. And then the other, like the mayor good brother, I was like, I took me like 3 movies to understand that he was like the neighbor whose car, like, why did the car get hit?
That just wrecked my brain. I was like, I wrote
really
that down
did.
to ask about it. Why the fuck did we see that?
I have no, because did he get killed and in the car? Like he got hit by a car or something crashed into his car at the end, right? It was like the mayor.
He did not die. I think it was just to show that his good luck had run out.
Yeah, I get that. Really like sort of abstract way of doing that. And also he like lived across the street from, wasn't it in relation to like where the kids were at the time? Like how did they happen to see that?
Wasn't he pulling out from the driveway across the street? So then how is that? We don't even know if that's him. Like we don't have no evidence that that's him.
They showed him. He turns around and he looks at the protagonist really clearly. And then he gets in the car and the car gets hit by a garbage truck. It's an insane moment. It's not.
I was very confused.
But they're not coming out of his house then.
They're coming out of Nick Good's house because Nick Good's like basement.
Oh, because they're across the street. Yeah.
Yeah.
Siblings have to live across the street from each other. I don't know if you guys know this, but like if you don't, like bad stuff happens. So I don't know. Why would they live across the street from each other?
So the mayor's innocent. Is that what we're getting? The mayor had nothing to do with this. He didn't know that his brother was a killer. He's just a great guy who became the mayor.
I think he knew he was benefiting from the power of their like ancestral evil or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, he seems.
Did he know
complicit.
about it though? Did he know that this guy? I feel like it's implied it's complicit, but don't they say that it's like a secret that's passed from like one good to another? So
yeah,
like,
I have huge questions about how that's passed down. Like, how? How is it like? If they have a daughter, is it not? Then we're getting into a whole weird issue. But it seemed like it was all the men. God forbid they don't have men in like their family. But does someone sit them down at age like 12 and say, hey, guess what? We're evil. We got to keep this going. Like, here's the lair or whatever. Or is it like, generational where they just are born into knowing?
I think they get shown. Don't they do a thing where they like show the guy? I think they show it like the handoff kind of happening. But
yeah,
it's weird. I mean, it's weird.
Like, why? There's not going to be one guy that's like, I don't know, Dad. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I want to go study at Brown. I want to be a marine biologist.
Right.
I don't want any part of this.
Right. I want to be a TikTok influencer. I'm not going to do this.
I didn't want to be the sheriff, which apparently is the most important job in the town. Everyone's like, wow, you're going to be the sheriff someday, so you better act right. And it's like, whoa, I didn't realize sheriff. What is like a small minded movie that like mayor and sheriff are like the lottery tickets of the town. Like that's like as big as you can possibly get. You made a pact with the devil so you can be the mayor and the sheriff. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, what? Think bigger, guys. We gotta, Are you stuck in this? I mean, maybe that's part of the thing, right? They're like stuck there forever so they can reign. I mean, who knows? Yeah. Also, the Succession actor, I mean, I guess he's just going to be permanently a bad guy and everything. He was the Officer Good adult character. Just also, did you guys notice that there was like a weird, like, it almost felt like a sexual tension between like the dark-haired girl who's like the main character and the officer. Like they just shared some long looks that I was like, what's this about? Like, why are they, is it like, could she sense that he was evil? And if they just like weren't acting it in a way that showed evil, it was more like, is he, at first I was like, is he into her? Like, is he a perv? And I think it was just the long looks. I don't know if you guys.
Ooh, I didn't. Do you think it was like real chemistry between the actors or something?
Oh God, that would be.
Gross.
I'm sure she's over 21, but
I thought it was just
who
creepy
knows?
glances, maybe.
Still troubling.
Yeah, they were just whatever it was. I didn't love. It was a little bit of confusing acting at times. Also, the least likely officer I've ever seen. I mean, I just don't see that guy being an officer.
You know, he, like all officer positions, though, it was handed down to him because his father was the sheriff before him. He was just born into it.
You're right.
There's an
Passed down
insane
to him.
line in the first movie. I paused the movie and complained about it. There's this like expositional line early on in the first one where he's speaking at like a memorial service for the murdered girl. And he's like, I'm the sheriff of this town. My father was the sheriff before me. My family's been in this town for generations. My brother is the mayor. It's like just 3 facts in a row.
Which also like horrible thing to say at like a memorial. It's like, this is not about you. Like you give your bio, like, hi, my name is Ingrid. I've been working in editorial for a while. I do comedy. And anyway, I was good friends with Jessica, but also my dad, like, it'd be like the rudest eulogy ever.
It's insane. All right. In memoriam, we're all going to do 2 truths and a lie real quick just to get to know each other better. It's what Cassandra would have wanted.
Oh God.
Okay. Let's get into some categories.
Okay.
Kevin, do you have a when did you know lined up?
Yeah. When did you know? This is disappointing. When did you know that the characters in the 1666 storyline weren't supposed to be like literal ancestors of the characters from 1994?
Never.
Just
Never.
baffling choice. I thought the casting in this movie was terrific, and I was excited to get to see everybody in another role, especially because like some of the teens in the 1994 one, they were playing very stereotypical like teen and a slasher movie things. And I was like, this is awesome. I think they're great. They get to do a period piece. But then it's like, maybe this is on me. I assumed that it was going to be a thing where like this curse has this whole town trapped repeating the same thing in a loop. And I was like, that's fucking awesome. And then it just wasn't that at all.
Yeah, then they were like completely different characters. Like everyone was, except for like the 2 girls who were in love. Like Simon wasn't the same. Like it was just, no one was the same at all. And they didn't even relate to each other the same ways. I think I was confused that entire time. And I was just like, okay, I guess in her like mind through this like witch flashback, she's seeing all of her friends and said, but that's just like not really how that kind of thing works, you know?
Yeah, it's weird. It feels like she went back, like she's tripping balls and she's just mapping all these people on people she knows already.
Right.
One of the things I did like about that flashback thing is that the people who lived in the 90s all died in the 1600s or whatever it was.
Oh.
You know, so they kind of like reversed the roles a little bit, you know, like all the kids were killed, like the kids who'd survived in the previous things were killed in the 1600s, or the actors were. So I don't know, maybe an excuse to do that. It felt intentional. So that's cool.
Oh, I did not catch that. The same kids died.
Yeah. The fun brother and then the redhead girl, like Gillian Jacobs, I guess. She died in there. They had their eyes gouged out. That was wild, actually. That
was quite the visual.
Ingrid, do you have a when did you know?
Yeah. And I don't know if I have an answer for this, but I'm curious to know, when did you know the bathroom was a portal?
I've always thought of bathrooms as portals.
And in a way they are.
Wait, so then does that mean that the house, like the good house, was built on top of the bathroom?
Yes. Well, or part of it, because there was one part that was the mall. Also, this is somehow the smallest town ever because it's only as big as a camp. But I'm pretty sure, yeah, like his went into the cave. The mall. Did the mall go into the cave?
Yeah, I think so.
All really confusing. But
The mall was like around the tree. And then outside of that was like the camp. And then but you're right. Then the bathroom just goes into the cave. And then the Good Brothers house is built on top of the cave somehow. So like they potentially tore down a portable, like they had to have that conversation with people. Like, we're going to build this mansion over this outhouse.
Well, and also, hey, we're going to buy all this land where this camp is. Maybe they got rid of the camp after the murder because it was bad PR. But weird to build your house over like a former camp that also no one in like building any of these things noticed. Like, does this man not have a basement? Like, they would notice the cave. So I rewatched the second beginning a couple times because I was watching with my fiance and he, I think, fell asleep or something. And there was nothing in that first scene except for she got the red stuff on her shirt. That was like the only clue that something was going on with the bathroom. And that was it. And then I just didn't know until like the very end of that movie.
It's kind of funny to think that, this is this like important part of this whole that process of witchcraft and this curse that's been running for hundreds of years. And there was a whole summer camp literally shitting all over it. Like, it's just kind of like blatantly disrespectful.
Yeah, like how long was that camp running over that, the cave?
Just dropping insane shit all over. Like they climbed over like a ton of shit, like to get out of that hole.
Oh yeah.
Just like, it's disgusting.
They didn't show enough poop in that part. No. They would have been coated in it.
It would have been terrible. There would have been stuff growing down there. It's weird.
And hey, for Sheriff Good's house, for the love of God, anytime it floods, just decades worth of camper shit.
Yeah. And probably bodies.
Why? When did you know? I know you guys aren't going to agree with this, but when did you know that this shouldn't have been a trilogy?
Oh, no.
This is a biased question.
I was like, this could have been a series. This could have been one movie. I feel like I do
think it could have been a series.
Yeah. I'm kind of leaning towards series. I was kind of leaning towards like series, like anthology style, like American Horror Story, where it's just like the same cast is just the same actors are just playing a completely different characters in like each generation of these slashers. I think this could have been like a whole series for Netflix.
I agree.
And it wasn't. Whatever. Let's get into beefs. Who or what did we not like about this movie? I'll go with a beef, which I think was my beef with the camp stuff and took away from my enjoyment of the camp scene. I don't like seeing the killer's face. I think it's like horror movie 101. Like, we don't see the killer's face. Like, knowing that it's one of the guys at camp who gets possessed and then he's running around and then he puts the bag over his head doesn't do it for me. Like, let's see the bag over his head. Let's see the reveal that it's this guy. I know it doesn't make sense for that story, but from a horror aspect, knowing who's doing the killing just makes it not a horror movie to me.
Yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying. I feel like they tried to mess with like the chronology of it and with mixed results. But I guess it was I did like that it was like, oh yeah, what does a person think when their boyfriend gets possessed into a murderer and, they have to suddenly try to make sense of it. And everyone's like saying their boyfriend is, a secret killer. That's interesting.
I think that is interesting. I think in another horror movie, or if this had been like its own standalone series, it could have been a reveal that he was the killer. Like usually in horror movies, I feel like that's the reveal. And in this, it was knowledge we already had.
He had the bag. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's set up that like the whole first movie, we have no idea who this guy is. And then we just see him being born. And it's like, it's not as fun. It's not as fun to see Leatherface's actual face. Like we don't want to see what Michael Myers has under the mask. Like the mask is what is the horror aspect of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my biggest beef with this. Ingrid, you got a beef?
Um, yeah, I was gonna say least believable drug dealers because that girl, I was just like I was just not buying all the pill counting and stuff. Like I know it happens, and like more power to them, especially her. I felt like was like, look, I'm glad that women are doing drug dealing in movies and stuff, but then I realized, no, my biggest beef is I just want to know who that like baby kid with the bat murderer is. I just want to know his origin story.
We didn't get shit. He was maybe the most intriguing looking of any of the killers they showed.
And scariest to see killing people. Mm-hmm. What's under there? What was he, a small child? And then, what's his story? We'll never know.
Maybe it's better we didn't see it because we would have seen him as a kid first, and then we would have seen the mask go on and him get the bat.
That's true. This would have been presented like in the wrong way, probably. But
it's like how in Black Widow they did a scene where we see Black Widow get the hair dye, so that the next time chronologically she has blonde hair, it's like, oh great, we finally know how she has blonde hair. And it's like we could have probably skipped that. Yeah, I hate exposition lines about hair changes. Speaking of Succession does that like at least once or twice. And I'm like, I don't give a shit that someone cut their hair. Just do your thing. We can understand that people get haircuts and no one talks about it. That happens all the time. Or even hair dye. I have dyed my hair and no one has noticed so many different times. I don't care. The movie goes on. I'm right there with you.
Agree to disagree.
I got another beef. At the end of part 3, when we're in 1994 and the story is wrapped up, the brother character finally meets the girl that he's been chatting with online when she signs his cast. It's the year 1994 and she signs his cast with the fucking @ symbol and then her online handle. Nah, get the fuck out of here. That started in 2009.
I mean, at the earliest, honestly. I mean, and no one was like writing it on cast, but we were sending like URLs in 2009. We weren't even doing that. That I didn't notice that, and that's horrifying.
It's insane. Like, do you think they did that because they assumed that teens now don't know a world before the @ symbol being somebody's username?
Yeah, that was like they did a survey or like a screening to like market the movie, and all the kids were like, what's that word? So they were like, what if we add an @? And then all the kids were like, oh, I get it.
It's a huge brain fart on their part.
That's awful. Really good point.
Let's get into thieves. Who or what stole the show for you? Ingrid, do you have a thief? What's your biggest thief for this?
I think his name was Simon, was such an excellent character. The guy, one of the two drug dealers, he was awesome. He stole the show, and he was super compelling to watch. And I kind of wish he had like a meteor, like backstory or something to add to like this whole thing. Cause he was just like awesome, and weird and perfect. And, a character that the youths can enjoy, and just a great actor. And I know that's so basic, but that's my thief.
It's so funny you say that. I turned to Lauren toward the end of the first movie and I was like, mark my words, that kid is going places. Like that kid is going to have a career. He was so good.
Yep.
The kid who jerked off in the bathroom.
Yes.
It's a portal. Tim.
Okay. So he's in White Lotus now too. And he was in like Lady Bird or one of those, or no, 8th grade. And so he is blowing up. And also he's from New York City and went to some fancy school. So he's going to be like the next Timothée Chalamet.
Damn,
yeah, he's great.
Little did we know.
Ah, man. That was honestly one of mine, just casting in general. And he was a standout to me, too. So for my thief, I will go with a special shout out to the character Alice in the second part for 3 or maybe even 4 separate moments where she realizes this is a map. She kept realizing things were maps. It was amazing. They could have given that revelation to any other character. I had to feel insane. Had to feel insane to shoot that movie for this actress, because she's like, oh, my thing is that I can find maps.
It's a great,
that's a really good one.
Great character detail. My biggest thief, I think, was the blood concept, which is pretty cool and pretty scary. And those are like the scariest moments for me, which is like whatever they're like all the bad guys are just after this one person. So like we cut her and then we smear the blood on stuff and that attracts them. And people are standing there not moving. Like the scariest parts of this movie are people standing there not moving while this like murderer just walks right by them and ignores them. Like that stuff's creepy. The spray gun stuff is like, I don't think I've really seen that before. I thought it was so cool. And it completely shocked. I don't know. Maybe I'm alone on this. I was completely shook when the kid started dying in the first one. You know, like when the drug dealer died and they like put her head through the meat grinder.
I was just going to say that might be one of my fiefs, is that moment will haunt me for the rest of my life. Truly
awesome.
One of the worst things I've ever seen. Yeah.
It was so cool. It was like that whole scene and the setup and they're stalking somebody. It was awesome.
That was a great scene and such a weird, like the like blocking of that whole store scene was incredible. The woman like choking or like drowning her friend while everyone else is getting murdered. Fantastic.
So
it
good.
Was insane.
It reminded me, did you guys ever see Ghost Ship?
Oh, fuck.
Where they all their heads get sliced by that weird wire.
Yeah. What was the scene?
Also one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen. They were all these like old timey people on this ship that was haunted or something. And then it sliced all of their heads off. The top, just this part. It was just the forehead. It was the creepiest thing ever.
Yeah, that was super fucked up.
That's what it reminded me of.
Why?
Yeah, I don't want to see anyone cut by wires anymore.
Oh,
I think that's what I want from a slasher movie, though, is I want not necessarily the wires, but I want a creative kill. And that's the kind of thing they could have leaned into more.
That's true. I think that's why it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, oh, you thought of a way to horrify me that I never would have thought of.
I thought it was.
And that's great.
It was so effective. I'm a huge fan of when everybody's on the table. Like when you really truly don't know who is going to be safe and who's going to get killed. Yeah. I think it's something the Game of Thrones did incredibly well, where you didn't know if a main character was going to die like 3 minutes into an episode. Like you didn't know who's going to die and when they're going to die. And you genuinely fear for the characters because, you know, so often you're watching these things and the protagonist just has plot armor. They're never going to get killed. But yeah, as soon as we saw her go through the bread slicer machine, it was like, this is nuts.
Yeah.
The blood concept in this movie is so fun too. And it's crazy to me to think that this girl got her head pushed through like the meat slicer, the bread cutter, when it's like the bad guys aren't even after her. She's got blood smeared on her shirt. She's a whole diversion.
I think that is kind of a plot hole, right? Because they weren't messing with them after they realized the blood thing. So why were people dying otherwise? Like, why were they so bloodthirsty at all? Like, why were they killing random kids at camp if it was just the blood of this one person?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, so many kids' heads got chopped in half. Why?
That's a great point. Why are they killing all of these people? God, now I don't even...
Yeah, like, is it the blood or is it not, man? Because...
Okay, wait. So then if the goods write down a name, what happens? What the name is the person who becomes the killer, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So then why did they want the blood of the blonde girl at the beginning? I forget the girl's name. Why do they want the girl in 1994? Why are they obsessed with her? Because she like touched something, but then why? Like the witch picked her and she has to die for that because of what? I thought her name was on the rock. Wasn't that part of it? Is like her name's on the rocks. So what?
The blonde girl from the other side of the tracks. Her name was on the rock, so she was picked.
So then why didn't she just become the killer?
Because they tied her up with weak rope next to a radiator. I have no idea.
But then,
wait, that's right. They were trying to kill her. The
bad guys want to kill her.
Yeah, they were trying to kill her at first because she got her blood on the witch's skeleton, which also doesn't really make sense because it's not the witch doing this stuff anyway.
Right.
So they were trying to kill her because she got her blood on the witch's skeleton. And then they like successfully kill her and then resuscitate her. And then after that, she's safe until her name is written into the wall by Sheriff Good. And then she becomes a killer, because she doesn't become a killer until the end of the first movie, after we already think, the story's over.
Yes. Well, basically, it's a whole scapegoating thing, right? I mean, they're trying to, for some reason, over generations, they keep trying to pin it on the witch, because that keeps the good safe, right? So I guess that justifies all of this, but it's a little bit like, I don't know. It's kind of a weird plan.
So are they picking the murderer and then like the token witch, I guess, that the murderer is supposed to kill? Or I don't know. I guess the more we've talked about this, the more I'm like, this makes zero sense. There's no sense to this. Yeah. The way it's explained is they write down a name, that person goes crazy, starts killing people. But then there's this weird blood concept, which I think is amazing, but there's no we go back in time and that like contradicts that. There's no reason for that. We also don't see the blood thing in the camp scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are they obsessed with one person? I guess they are obsessed with the two sisters.
Yeah. The sisters. Yeah. And yet every kid dies.
Yeah.
But every kid dies in the way that, it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make any sense at all. No. Cool. So I'm glad we got there at the end of the pod. Before we wrap it up with final thoughts, I want to introduce this new category we've been kicking around. Pick one. Okay. And here's my pick one for this week's episode. Pick one character that you want to see get their own solo slasher movie. We introduced like a ton of these killers. I'll just run through a few of them. The Pastor Cyrus Miller. We kind of saw it. I don't know. We could have gotten some more there. There was a character called the Grifter. I don't even remember what the Grifter was, but I guess he was the one that was drowning people in the river and like stabbing them. Billy Barker, who's the kid with the bat, who's always like clanking it up. Personally, really creeped me out every time I saw him. There was someone called the Humpty Dumpty Killer, who I'm not sure exactly who that was, but I guess he was leaving pieces of his victims like all over the place for the cops to find. The Milkman, who was like wearing the mask and like murdering housewives, I guess. Ruby Lane, who's walking around with the blade and singing songs. I guess Tommy Slater is the camp killer. Skull Mask is the mall kid. Or I guess maybe a solo good movie, but F that. They're also killers. But which one of the like serial killers would you want to see get their own movie?
I mean, I'm going to have to say Ruby Lane. I mean, I got to see that one.
Ruby Lane's awesome.
The song was a bop. We got to hear that bop a bunch. I'd love to hear that in a movie. And yeah, it was creepy and she was cool. There's a lot of stuff there that you could, wade into for a couple hours.
I think I'm also going Ruby Lane. She was like the most standout iconic of the ones that they introduced. Also, when she was she had the brother pinned down in the last movie, I was just thinking about how fucking scary a straight razor is as a weapon, because you can't like grab it. You can't stop it. You're immediately just getting fucked up if you touch that thing at all. So it's just really, creepy, terrifying. Yeah. She's got the whole package.
She's good.
Got it. And
she stood out to me by far and away as like, this is the best character. This is the best horror character you've created in this whole thing. And now you're going back in time to show you're showing us the guy like axe murderer with bag on head, like generic camp slasher guy. And you're blowing over Ruby Lane. The other one was Billy Barker for me, where like that kid showing up with the bat every time. I'm like, this is creepy. And it's just him.
He was the baby face one, right? Like the doll face.
The weird doll head. And then they just show scenes of him like beating his parents in their bed with a bat. It's like, whoa, we're not seeing this. Why aren't you showing us this stuff? This is crazy.
That's what I mean. I got to see that doll face kid. What's up with him? Why did they keep teasing us with him? He got a lot of the prominent little cameos and all those like, here they all come moments. And it wasn't enough for me to get that little bit of background.
He was too creepy to just keep on the sidelines. Like, that clip of him beating the parents' heads in was horrifying. Ugh.
Did we get enough of the pastor in this one? I think there's a creepy pastor, like there's a whole movie based around this like creepy pastor who's like murdering people and like getting into the occult. And we get like one really messed up scene, but we also don't see him like transform. It's just he's a great guy one day.
Yeah, it was too little.
Next day, we're in a church where he's gouging eyes out. It's like, what happened? Like, what is going on here? This is like a whole movie into itself. And it's just being presented as like, I don't know.
Yeah, it was a bit confusing how brief that was, honestly. I would have liked to have seen the, takeover, and also logistically how he gouged all those children's eyes out without one of them, running away. Did he set them back up in the chairs? I guess probably.
There's a lot of prep work.
It's a lot of work.
And he gouged his own eyes out, but he's alive. So like, is he a spirit? Is he like a demon? Is he really just this crazy human who gouged his own eyes out? Like, that's disturbing too.
They can't die, right?
But then they just stab him and he dies instantly. They like stab him with a pitchfork and he's done. And it's like, really? The eye gouging wasn't a problem, but a pitchfork
that doesn't make any sense.
Is like crazy. It's weird.
Yeah, it was strange too with part 2, he got stabbed a couple times, and then finally for some reason one of the stabbings took and the axe guy dropped Tommy. And I was like, why did the 5th one work, but the first one to the heart didn't work? It's really strange. I did catch that horror reference that was very Event Horizon. Super like Sam Neill in Event Horizon, where we're going, we don't need eyes to see.
Oh, I never saw that movie, but that's a good call. I think every single reference was very purposeful, which is why I appreciated the movie. I think the retro vibes were a bit overkill. I just feel like with it and Stranger Things, we've just like really overdone the like 90s vibes, but
I mean,
or 80s,
they let you know
70s, I don't know.
The first one too, they played like not 1, not 2, but like 4 or 5 90s songs back to back,
which I thought they were purposely kind of like beating us over the head with it. No pun intended. But I liked that. I was like, okay, I get it. They're making a point. They're like doing it overkill because everyone else lately is going like so hard with the retro stuff.
When they played Offspring in like the 90s, I was legit like doing a double take, like, what? Offspring isn't an 80s band. And then I like had to like, I like exited the app and I was like looking at the title. It's like 90. I was like, why is this a 90s? I don't know. I remember just being shocked that it was in the 90s at a certain point, which is like kind of crazy because it feels like they're simultaneously beating you over the head with it, but also like, I don't know. There's nothing distinctly 90s about it, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I do feel like, there wasn't a lot of like even the clothes. I was like, I don't know. I guess this is 90s.
Why not? Let's wrap it up. Final thoughts. Kevin, what are your final thoughts on this masterpiece, Fear Street?
I think there was more right with it than wrong with it. I think it definitely clears the bar for me. It was a fun watch. I do feel like I would have liked to see more of the 1994 stuff. Would have loved to see the second movie be maybe like time jumping back and forth between the 70s and the 90s. But overall, had a good time. And I say watch it. If you like horror movies, if you like slasher movies, I think this will probably do it for you.
Yeah, I had a good time with it. I'm standing by my pitch that this should have been a series. This should have been just like a series. Like the connective tissue in it felt some forced. Like I would have loved to see these guys just do the camp slasher like on its own without worrying about all this connective stuff. Like just do these different period things. Just give us Billy Barker. Just give us Ruby Lane and like blow it out. But I mean, I don't know. It's fun. If you're looking for a fun horror movie, check it out. The ending is satisfying, I think. And I don't know. I had a fun time talking about it, too. Ingrid, bring us home. Final thoughts.
Yeah, I truly enjoyed like nearly all of it. I thought that they tried so many new, different things that the like you said, the connection issues didn't bother me as much because it was just such a fun time. And I loved it. I think, if you're into horror movies, this is definitely like something that you should watch. And, kind of knowing all the caveats that we've discussed, it still was great fun. So I loved it.
Fantastic. Ingrid, thank you so much for joining us this week. This was awesome.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. I'm so glad that we could talk, and I hope that we can chat again about some other insane movie sometime.
Absolutely.
That'd be great. Got anything you want to plug?
Oh, Lord. No, just, look me up and give me a shout.
Nice. That, yeah, that sounds great. You got an Instagram? You got a handle or something?
Yeah, it's the @ symbol, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with.
Very 90s,
and then Ingrid Ostby is me on everything.
Fantastic. Kevin, you got anything you want to plug or say or do or talk about?
God. They opened a Harry Potter store in the Flatiron building, and I really want to go see it. There's a butterbeer bar. I think it's all the same like licensed stuff that they have down in Orlando. I haven't been down there. I want to see it.
Butterbeer's great.
How long is it going on?
I think it's just indefinitely open.
Okay, we should definitely go do that, because we just got back from, if you might know, that my fiance Bob and I just went to Harry Potter, Wizarding World of Harry Potter. So very into going to see another arm of the HP universe.
I would love that. I know they have the giant like Phoenix from Dumbledore's office like displayed prominently. It looks like they put a lot of work into this thing. I'm so there for it.
Incredible. I love it.
Let me know when you're going to be in town. Let's do this.
I'm so excited about Harry Potter. This is great. Before this pod, we talked about how we can make it shorter, and then and then we end up talking about Harry Potter at the end. No, I love it.
Every podcast should have a Harry Potter reference at the end, and then like a disclaimer: we don't support J.K. Rowling or anything she stands for. We just happen to love Harry Potter, right?
Yeah,
you got to end every podcast with that.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Next week, me and Kevin will be back with Free Guy, the Ryan Reynolds film. Very exciting.
You
film,
really
not a movie.
struggled to say film there.
Thanks so much for listening. Leave us a rate and review if you can. And that's it for us. See you next week. Stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.
My new catchphrase. Bye.
Bye.